Good afternoon, everyone. So, I am now going to be walking through all of the complaints, starting with the CRD, including the Jed Wallace lawsuit, of where Blake Lively has referred to her state of undress, should we call it, for the birth scene. And I'm going to show you all the changes, all the way it changes and evolves. And then I'm going to go through with the look at the birth scene video and then compare and contrast, because there is one huge difference which no one seems to have picked up on, not that I've seen anyway, in her story, which completely blows it apart. And I think it just annihilates all credibility for me. So, the CRD. Okay, so this is paragraph 36, and she talks about the birth scene being, when it was filmed, the set was chaotic, crowded, utterly lacking in standard industry protections. And when Blake Lively's attorney was questioning Justin Baldoni, and bear in mind, we've got the full deposition, right? And I was like, oh, the only question Justin Baldoni appears to have been asked by Michael Gottlieb is, did you ever ask Miss Lively to perform the scene naked? And Justin Baldoni said, no. Did Jamie Heath? No. And that was the sum total of the discussion around the birth scene. And I was like, but hold on. How come you're not saying, Mr. Baldoni, why was the set chaotic? Why was it lacking in its standard industry protections? Why was it crowded when it should have been a closer? Like, where were all these questions? It made no sense why Gottlieb was not asking those questions. Including things like, well, the intimacy. They're saying that the scene wasn't choreographed with an intimacy coordinator. We now know that's a lie. And remember that at this point, she was implying that there wasn't even an intimacy coordinator. That was false. Then she's saying, well, they didn't have a signed nudity rider. And, again, just to remind everyone, she refused to sign it until several months later. So the failing to close the set, right? But let's talk about what Blake Lively was wearing and how she presented, okay? So she's saying, Miss Lively was mostly nude with her legs spread wide in stirrups and only a small piece of fabric covering her genitalia. And then we have a footnote further down, right, which says, and I don't love the way on this, she says is generally, like, she's not specifying that this applies to her. She's saying, well, in this industry, this is what we do. So where you've got a shot that requires kind of the visual appearance of nudity whilst protecting the kind of modesty of the actor or actress, film industry utilizes, and this is what she's saying, a small piece of nude fabric glued around the female actor's genitalia to provide some minimal privacy. Okay, so I actually have an image of what that looks like, not on someone, but just what it looks like. So this is kind of similar. This is a similar kind of garment, I guess, that an actress would wear. So you can see that it goes over the front. This triangular bit goes over the front, and it's kind of sealed with adhesive. And then you got the circle bit. Then it goes kind of up and under, and or under and up in this case. And then the circular bit is kind of glued to the around the tailbone area, the base of the spine. And that is usually the colouring, and Blake Lively has specified there, nude. Well, that would make sense, because if you are given the image that someone's naked that is someone's naked genitals for a scene like, the character is given birth, there's got to be some kind of colour match. So, Blake Lively says, I had a nude piece of fabric glued. Well, she didn't say she did. She said generally a nude piece of fabric is glued to the genitalia. Okay, so with me so far. Then we have her her first complaint. Right? Again, it's word for word. Miss Lively was mostly nude, with her legs spread wide in stirrups and only a piece of fabric covering her genitalia. Okay? So far, so good. Also, we have the same footnote. Small piece of nude fabric glued around the female actor's genitalia to provide some minimal privacy without disturbing the shot. And she kind of makes her own argument here because that fabric is not able to have visible straps. Okay, so you would not see any visible straps on, like, round the hips, like you would see with underwear, you know? Keep walking with me though. So where are we now? We have Lively's amended complaint, her first one. I'm not going to do the second because they're pretty much the same. Okay, so again, all crowded, chaotic, blah, blah, blah. Now she's partially nude from the chest down. Yeah. Oh, I hope you're following me here, Sid. So before, the being partially nude from the chest down, that wasn't a thing. Okay. We'll go back here again to the first complaint. First complaint says Miss Lively was mostly nude, right? And now you'll see the wording has changed. She was partially nude from below the chest down with her legs spread wide in stirrups and only a small piece of fabric covering her genitalia. So that's the first change. Now, we still have this fabric. We still have this footnote, nude fabric, glued, etc., etc. All right, so it's still nude. Let's see, where do we go? Do you know where I might take you actually now? I'm going to take you to Jed Wallace's. Right, so she filed a motion to dismiss in Jed Wallace's lawsuit in Texas. And I've been jumping up and down about the difference in the word in here compared to anything that's in New York. So this is Jed Wallace's lawsuit. This is Lively's motion to dismiss. And she is talking here, right? So I'm at this point here. For example, the CRD complaint alleges that Baldoni divulged information about his sex life, made derogatory, degrading, and sexual comments, described his own genitalia. So this is the first time we hear about describing the genitalia, which turned out to be the circumcision comment. Well, we might have heard about the describing our own genitalia actually in New York, but we know that this went on to become the circumcision comment. Improvised unwanted intimacy that had not been rehearsed, choreographed, or discussed with Miss Lively in advance. Added graphic content to the script, the script that she claims to the PGA that she wrote, including multiple new scenes with nudity. Right? And on-screen orgasm. Now she's talking about young Lily here, not her, young Lily, but she's thrown it in here as if it's happened to her. Why? Because Jed Wallace was not on the set. He cannot retort back and say, no, that did not happen. But it inflates her claims here, where there is no one who can speak to the truth of them. See what she's doing? Because that on-screen orgasm, on-camera orgasm was young Lily's, actually, that she took offense to. And then we get to the birth scene and added unscripted nudity to a birthing scene for which he cast his friend as the OBGYN. Nudity. It's nude. We don't even have the footnote about generally, actors use a thin piece of fabric. That's not there. It's not partial nudity anymore. And this is after the filing of her original complaint, obviously the CRD, the original complaint, and the first amended complaint. This is in April. Her first amended complaint was filed in February. So this is actually after. And we're not talking about partial nudity or mostly nude. We're talking about nudity. And that is why I've been like, are you, are you seriously like all the jumping up and down? So, where are we now? Okay. So I'm going to move to Wayfarer's first amended complaint, actually. Later in her complaint, Lively, so this is paragraph 83, later in her complaint, Lively alleges that during a scene, the birthing scene, she was mostly nude with her legs spread wide in stirrups and only a piece of fabric covering her genitalia. Now remember, this is before she amended the complaint. In fact, this is Wayfarer's original complaint. So it's before she changed it to nude, nude from the waist down kind of thing. They go on to say, to begin with, to describe Lively as mostly nude and naked from below the chest down is dishonest. She was wearing black briefs and a pregnancy suit that covered her midsection, and her top was covered by a hospital gown. Her legal complaint deliberately, they've italicized the word deliberately, suggests she was wearing a small piece of nude fabric glued around her genitalia by stating this is generally what female actors use to provide some minimal privacy without disturbing the shot, leaving the reader to believe Lively was wearing only wearing this small fabric. Lively was aware of this birthing scene as she was heavily involved in rewriting the script and gave creative input for this specific scene, even against the director's creative vision. So they're saying, well, hold on a minute. Firstly, she wrote the scene. Secondly, she is letting people assume and believe that she was made to wear this piece of fabric. That's not true. She was wearing black briefs, the prosthetic belly, and a pregnancy, like a hospital gown on her top half. Okay. So far, so good. Okay. Sorry, I'm just trying to find the right tab. Then that was backed up by Adam Monshine coming out, who very clearly said here her costume included a full hospital gown, black shorts, and we can forgive a man for calling, briefs shorts, and torso covering prosthetic to make her appear pregnant, in addition to whatever personal garments she chose. Okay, so that's Adam Monshine's interpretation of what happened. And then what happened next was Wayfarer, when they filed their motion for summary judgment, they also included the clip of the birth scene, which I will play in a minute. But Lively had to respond to that because that is going to show something very different to what she has claimed in every complaint up to this point. So let's go there. This is Lively's response, which is now unsealed. This is actually the Rule 56.1 statement, Lively's opposition. Plaintiff's response. Okay. So 64 footage. So Wayfarer say footage of the birthing scene, which is this exhibit here, shows Lively covered with a hospital gown and a prosthetic pregnancy belly. Lively. Disputed as incomplete and misleading, which is very ironic. While certain footage of the birthing scene shows Lively wearing a hospital gown and prosthetic belly, production blocked and filmed the scene over several hours using multiple framings and angles. So, including angles that depicted Lively's side profile fully nude from the chest down, right? Now, I'm going to dispute that too. I am. Because if I've got a still, I've got the video, which I'll play, but I've also got a still. Lively is not looking nude from the chest down at all. I don't think that at all. But anyway, we will have a look to see what you think. To obtain these shots, the hospital gown was positioned only to cover her breasts. Okay, let's go there. So this is a still that I managed to grab. It's not the clearest, but as you can see, the prosthetic belly, yeah, okay, that's on show, but that's not her body. What we have here, though, is the gown that is quite all the way down, actually, down to her thigh. Yeah. And I don't love having to do this, but she's put it at issue, so, we're going to do this. And then let's go back to this. So the hospital gown was positioned to only cover her breasts with an exposed prosthetic belly. Well, your character is giving birth, for goodness sake. I mean, what? I'm not even sure what she's arguing about. But the prosthetic belly is not her real belly. The clue is in the name, prosthetic. And then she's now changed. No longer is the fabric nude. Do you notice that? It's now a small, thin piece of flat black fabric. Every other complaint has said it's nude. But she's had to respond to Wayfarer, to the video, which is clearly showing that she's wearing black fabric. And there's no other way to respond to it other than to say, well, yeah, okay, but they glued a piece of black fabric to my genitals. On her, a white woman, they glued black piece of fabric to her genitals to give the audience, the impression that her genitals were nude. Now, her skin tone is not going to match that black fabric. It would make absolutely no sense. And I'm sure someone will say, well, the black fabric was to kind of give the illusion of pubic hair. I mean, no, not in this day and age, right? Maybe if this was back in the 70s when, people were kind of letting themselves go and let their downstairs look like Epping Forest, then maybe. But these days, people where, they have Brazilians or, they have everything removed. And it's just absurd to suggest that this black piece of fabric doubles up as, the illusion of pubic hair. No one's actually said that yet. I'm just anticipating. But if we go back, right, to this, there's a couple of problems to what she's saying. Obviously, this is the only angle where her foot was actually not covering this area. Literally, this is the one frame that I could find where her foot was not entirely covering the area. Her leg, sorry. Right? You can see it's black underwear. But if you look down at the side, right, on her hip, right underneath that hospital gown, there's black there. These are briefs. That's not a modesty patch. That is not a modesty patch. I just showed you what one was. They are specifically designed to leave no straps visible around the hips. That's the whole point of them. Even Lively says that in her footnote. But there is black fabric around her hips there. These can only be briefs, exactly as Wayfarer described. But now we are having to kind of, Lively is having to respond to now she's seen the footage. It's like, oh crap, I'm wearing black. Shit, how do I deal with that? And she's now changed the color of the fabric, which for the last, all of her complaints in New York, from the CRD down to her second amended, And what she said in Texas as well against Jed Wallace. Not once did she ever say the fabric was black. And in fact, she specifically said it was nude. So I think this would really shoot her credibility, because this video backs up what Wayfarer was saying. What else was that? It also says the cited footage does not fully or accurately reflect the partial nudity simulating blocking and filming that occurred. Do you know, I don't care anymore what she says. And that is what the jury will get an instruction, you know, like if you find any one thing that contradicts, you know, if she contradicts her version of events in any one thing, the jury will be invited to find her anything she says going forward uncredible. Okay. Sorry, I'm just seeing what else is that. Is there anything else? Right, so we'll go to docketupdates.com. And thank you very much to the amazing people who put this website together. It was so helpful. We'll play the video. Watch how quick this scene is, so the glimpse of kind of her downstairs. A second. There you go. Watch the blink and you'll miss it scene where you actually see anything from below the waist, by the way. It's so quick.
Yeah, it does. Thank you. Set.
And action.
3, 2, 1. You feel it coming? Great. Just take a breath. How's she doing? Fully dilated? We're almost there.
Fully dilated. Okay, you got this, baby. Okay.
Nice big breath on 10. She's crowning.
Okay.
Okay, good pushes.
Good.
She's doing great.
Yes.
Here we go. Good. Bear down.
Oh, there she is. There she is.
Good.
Hey.
Okay. All right. One last time.
There it is.
Here
There
we
it is.
go.
There it is.
Good.
Yes. Okay. And cut.
You're strong.
So that's it. For me, I just, you know, like I say, it's important to note the differences. and how the story evolves. It's the same with the what was it? The birth video that Jamie Heath showed. The trailer thing. You know, how many different versions did we get? Lively said, well, let him in, but under these conditions. Jamie Heath gave a completely different version. And then the makeup artist, I think it was, gave an absolutely different version again, where they were like, she was saying, "Oh, we said no, don't come in," and I just, it's kind of important to note these kind of differences, because she needs to be impeached by Wayfarer, in terms of like, well, you said this, but actually the footage says this, or you said this here, but then you changed your story here, and this is now what it says. These are going to be quite important moments, because when the jury is going to want to see discrepancies, and they're going to want to see explanations for them too. And that is largely why, Johnny Depp was so successful in the trial in Virginia against Amber Heard, because things didn't add up. Like Camille Vasquez bringing out a photo of a spilled bottle of wine on the floor and saying, "You exhibited it for this incident here," say for argument's sake, it was in March, right? Yes, and then getting Amber Heard to confirm that, yes, this happened, blah 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 blah, and then saying, "But you also exhibited it, the same photo, for another incident, which was 7 months later. How do you explain that?" And that was just an absolute stroke of genius. And that it was moments like that and showing those inconsistencies that largely led to the jury being swayed to believe Johnny Depp. And then I think, with one more point I have to make as well, if we go to X, so I've noticed Lively is saying that, well, the birth scene that was shown to me the day after the. Oh, right, I'm getting confused between birth video and birth scene. The birth video that Jamie Heath showed me, that was shown the day after we'd already filmed the birth scene, so there was no need for him to show it to me, right? I've just got something else I wanted to bring up with that. Okay, so here, specifically, now, if you look at this bit in yellow, right, Lively is saying she disputes that Heath showing that video had any relation to the birth scene, filming of which had completed the day before or was done in the context of related discussions, right? And this has kind of really annoyed me, right? Because that particular scene we just looked at, right, is Lively physically giving birth, okay? So no. And I think this actually supports what Jamie Heath is saying. What Jamie Heath is saying actually was going through their mind what part of the video in his wife's water birth he was trying to show. I put this post up on X back in November, and I put to compare. I think this is the creative vision that Baldoni had in mind, and they did it as well. Okay, so this is the scene from the film. This is an actual scene that was in the film. This is the vision, I believe, that Justin Baldoni had in mind, was this moment, that very intimate moment where new parents, and they have this moment with their child immediately after the child is born. And that fits with this image that Jamie Heath said he tried to show, because Jamie Heath was having that same intimate moment with his wife and their newborn child. And I absolutely believe that this is the scene that he was trying to show Blake Lively. I also believe that this part of the film was filmed the following day, and it makes complete sense why she was shown that portion of that, video, specifically the afterbirth part, to get this kind of creative vision in mind. and say, look, this is what Justin wants. That's my theory. If this scene was filmed the next day or a day or two after the actual birth scene, then that makes all the sense to me in the world, because it would make no sense to me in reality for that to be the image that was being shown to Lively, for her, as creative input for the video we just saw of the character, her as her character physically giving the baby's crowning, etc., etc. Because that doesn't look anything like it. That is just my take on it. The other thing I will say is I've seen text messages, right, where Lively is saying to someone, and I can't remember who, but she's like, oh, and he showed me a picture of his wife. She was naked with boobs and legs spread and vagina everywhere. And it was just fucking mental, right? And she acknowledges she was in that Jamie Heap's wife is in a water bath. If you look at the light in here, right, it looks like the light is quite dimmed, right? Which tracks with their kind of, peaceful kind of way of life. And to, bring the baby into a, kind of non-stimulated world, etc., etc., and just have those very intimate moments, very, very relaxing. But also in water baths, even if the lights were bright, it is nigh on impossible to see a woman naked in the water, to see anything in any sort of detail that you could describe the way Lively was describing to her friend. It is impossible. So I'm not quite sure what she saw. She did not see what she described. If you look at any video of a woman giving birth in a water bathing tub, it is practically impossible to see anything graphic because of the movement of the water. You may have other things in there like, blood, etc. Midwife is quite often in the middle of all of that, obstructing, because the midwife is in a specific area. So Jamie Heath wouldn't have been, right there with a camera. And it's just ludicrous to even suggest that. He would have been in the way. So if he was filming his wife while she was actually giving birth, it would have been from like a side angle or something where he would have been he would have caught the moment, but not obstructing the midwife doing what she needs to do. And even if the midwife weren't in the middle of it, like I say, the actual view, because of the movement of the water, is incredibly obscured. You can't make anything out. Lively is talking out of her ass. She always does, though. So that's my take on the birth scene and its evolution. The change in the fabric as well now has been, changed from being a nude fabric to a black fabric. And I think that is a big deal, especially in terms of credibility. And then again, I think we can explain the birth scene. I'm hoping that we will see some clarity on what scene was being filmed the day Jamie Heath showed her the video. But if it was filmed the same day as the actual birth, if he showed it to Lively the same day as the actual birth scene that we just watched, it would have made less sense to me. So it makes more sense to me that actually they were filming that scene. And I'm going to leave it there. I hope you enjoyed this, guys. Please do like and subscribe. And if you can hype, that'd be amazing. It helps my channel. I will be doing a few other things. I will be looking at the Betty Buzz morality clause thing as well. So I will get to that. And I've got a few other things I want to do. Then I'm going to continue on with transcripts and emails and all the other stuff.